Have you noticed how every big publisher lately wants you to know exactly how small their teams are? It's like the new selling point. This amazing game was just made by 30 people. And sure, it's impressive. Games like Expedition 33 proves that smaller teams can absolutely crush it. But here's what nobody seems to realize. The size of the team isn't what makes these games great. Creative freedom is. Now you got companies like Ubisoft jumping on the small team bandwagon, reorganizing into something they're calling creative houses. They say it'll mean smaller teams, more creative freedom, more passion. But let's be real, unless Ubisoft lets these teams fully control their creative direction, nothing's gonna change. It's gonna be the same old formula, just in smaller packages. Here's what's happening right now at Ubisoft. They're splitting their studio into smaller groups. They're calling these groups creative houses, focusing exclusively on single franchises like Assassin's Creed or Far Cry. On the surface, it seems like a good move. Smaller teams mean more creativity, more agility, more room to experiment, but I've been there. I've worked as a creative inside a corporate environment before, and I know how these restructures work. Even if the team is small, real creative decisions usually come from above. So unless these teams at Ubisoft are truly empowered to make their own decisions, the games aren't gonna get more creative, they're just gonna get smaller. Let's talk about why Ubisoft is even doing this in the first place. Ubisoft saw an incredible success in games like Expedition 33 from Sandfall Interactive, a small, more passionate team that took genuine creative risks. A game that actually got popular from feeling more personal, more authentic, and actually refreshing. Now publishers like Ubisoft want the same credibility. They want players to see them as a creative, indie-inspired, but the problem is Ubisoft can't or won't take the same kind of risks as smaller studios did. They have massive franchises with millions of dollars at stake, and Assassin's Creed can't afford to be risky or experimental, at least in their executives' perspective. That's exactly why they're missing the point on what made Expedition 33 so great. It wasn't about the team size, it's about the trust, passion, and genuine creative control. And here's the truth, you can love the work, but rarely you get fully control and creative visions in these kinds of teams. Usually you're executing these ideas from someone else and working off of their direction and just checking off some boxes. Look, I understand why Ubisoft doesn't give complete creative control over these teams. They've invested heavily into their franchises and creative freedom does come with a risk, but that's exactly the kind of risk that created standout games like Expedition 33, Hades, and other games like that. Without real ownership over creative decisions, Ubisoft's smaller teams aren't going to be delivering innovative games anytime soon. They're going to be delivering smaller versions of the same predictable games that Ubisoft has always come out with. So if Ubisoft really wants to restructure and succeed, here's what that really needs to look like. They need to let the teams pitch their own ideas, allow them to experiment, take some risk, and even fail. Give them genuine ownership over franchises they're handling, not just illusion of creative control, and that's how real innovation happens. That's why smaller, more independent teams like Sandfall were able to create a game that players actually cared about. Ubisoft absolutely has some talent. The people that work under them are talented people. They're there for a reason. There's no shortage of incredibly skilled developers and artists at the company. But without true creative freedom, the talent can only produce more of the same corporate-driven, safe experiences we've come to expect. So here's why I'm making the video. Smaller teams and games aren't dying because they don't work. They're dying because big publishers are misunderstanding or misusing the idea of turning a small team into a marketing buzzword, instead of recognizing what actually makes these small teams succeed. It isn't the team size, it's the passion, trust, and real creative control. Without changing who truly makes the decisions, publishers like Ubisoft are just going to reshuffle the deck, delivering the same games under a different name. Are small teams actually dying in video games? Not exactly. But the true essence of what made smaller teams succeed, real creative freedoms, is definitely under threat. Ubisoft's creative houses won't fix anything unless they actually empower the people making the games. Otherwise, we're just going to be climbing towers, unlocking maps, and doing the same old thing over and over again in classic Ubisoft's fashion. But, let me know what you think. Can Ubisoft or, any big publisher actually give their teams genuine creative freedom? Or is this just another marketing move? Either way, I'm going to be watching. I'm Digital Pencil, and yeah, keep on gaming.